I want to welcome everyone for coming out today. Quite a blustery day out there, but it's good we're indoors. So, thank you, veterans, family members, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank the St. Charles Municipal Band for their wonderful rendition that they have presented for us today. Presentation of colors by Larry Brown, the officers today, VFW Post 2866.
Detail. Left. Forward. Left. 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 Crossover. On. Colors posts. Detail released.
Pledge of Allegiance by Don Lauer, Service Officer, American Legion Post 312.
Please uncover. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Invocation by Larry Brown, Chaplain, VFW Post 2866.
All rise and uncover. Heavenly Father, we are here today to express our respect and appreciation for the men and women who have dedicated their lives to the protection of our country. We admire the sacrifices of these soldiers and their families who today continue to commit their lives to the principles upon which our nation was established. We are also here to remember those who have made the ultimate sacrifice supporting the belief that all men and women are created equal and deserve to enjoy the rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We are eternally grateful because due to these brave men and women, we can continue to have the lives of freedom and happiness we enjoy in our country today. These things we ask in thy holy name. Amen.
Amen.
A few words from our St. Charles County Executive, Honorable Steve Hellman.
Thank you. Let me, before I thank our veterans, let me also thank our band. Mayor, you know, the cities in St. Charles are always competing, who has the most housing starts, who's got the biggest city hall, and everything. But as far as I know, St. Charles is still the only one with a band.
And a good one.
And a good one. I think, aren't you like coming up on a 100-year anniversary?
We're coming up on 150.
150.
This next summer will be 148.
Okay, well, that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you again. And I'll just give you a little bit of historical information here with regard to the veterans from St. Charles County. You know, 100 years ago, of course, we were at war against Germany. And shortly after that declaration, April 1970, Shepard Emmons, whose grandfather had been the first state rep from St. Charles, whose father had served as a colonel in the Union Army during the Civil War, he was the first to volunteer from St. Charles County. 3 weeks later, 25 men volunteered for the 5th Regiment being farmed in the St. Louis area, and they were honored at a patriotic day in St. Charles. Now, when the war came, some were concerned that, you know, probably 3 out of 4 people in St. Charles County were descendants from German immigrants. And some people wondered, well, what about their loyalty? Well, first of all, most of those Germans didn't come from Prussia. they came from the other German states and really weren't very big fans of the German Empire. My great-great-grandfather left Baden when it no longer was independent and became part of the German Empire, and he basically left Germany to avoid being in the Kaiser's army. Little did he know that his grandson would be in the American army. But it was a real outpouring of loyalty from the people in St. Charles. We were #1 in the state in the bond drive. In terms of raising money, we raised over $1 million worth of bonds in St. Charles alone. And the mayor at the time, John Steinbrück, right after this patriotic day, he said, "I know from your faces and demonstrations that whatever may have been the desire and hope of all of us, that our great country might be spared the horrors of war, and that our entry into the same having been decreed by those whom we have placed in the authority of our national affairs, we still are all united behind our government and hope and pray for the success of our men in arms." In May, it would have been a year ago or 100 years ago last May, President Wilson signed the Selective Service Act, which included a provision for some local control of draft boards. All in all, men 21 to 30 were required to register with their local draft boards by June 5th, 1917, and the first men were drafted in July. Physical examinations were given in August, and the first county draftee departed in September. Several young men married to avoid the draft. When they did, the local newspaper suggested, quote, "We notice in the newspaper from all parts of the county that parents are giving their consent to the marriage of their sons who are underage. If it is the work of Cupid, of course it is okay, but it's not patriotic these days," unquote. There were 1,166 St. Charles County men who served in the armed forces during that war, and many more served in the local Home Guard, formed in 1918 to provide security here while our National Guard was overseas. We had 3 doctors from St. Charles who served either overseas or in Army camps. We had 3 women who volunteered as nurses to go to France. They received a great deal of appreciation when they returned to St. Charles. And the sad thing is that that same scenario has reoccurred now several other times. And in every case, people from St. Charles have responded to serve their country. We're here today to honor them. And on behalf of all the people of St. Charles County, I want to say thank you to them, and especially all of you that are here today.
I want to thank Steve for those words. Excuse me. This time we'll welcome the City of St. Charles Mayor, Ms. Sally Faith.
You can clap. First of all, this is just a good group. And as Steve Elman said, County Executive, great organization. It's great. I told him they need money, and he told me to give him some. So, you know, not at Steve. Okay, but the reason we're here, thank you. It is truly an honor to be a part of today's Veterans Day program. On behalf of the entire St. Charles City Council and our city staff members, I'd like to say welcome and extend sincere thanks to the St. Charles City Veterans Commission and the St. Charles County Veterans Committee for their dedication in hosting the annual opportunity to pay tribute local to all of our local members of our nation's military. Today is a special day set aside for us to remember, thank, and recognize all of the men and women in our armed forces that sacrificed so much to maintain the freedom we, as Americans, have taken for granted. And I'm going to close with something that Ben Blanton sends out oh, it's on the back. Never mind, I'm right on the back of everything. Okay, and I want to say one more statement, and then I'd like to close with Ben Blanton sends out a daily, and today I'm going to read the one he sent out. And I always look at that every day to get the day going. So I want to extend our honor thanks to all those still wearing uniform and those who have made the ultimate sacrifice proudly serving this great country. Let's make a promise that we will live with a full appreciation of the liberties that they have so bravely fought for during their service. And what I like to read is, and it's like those, I like things that are direct to the point. Under one flag, heroes serve, die, and are honored. Under one flag, they will always be remembered, never forgotten, our veterans. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. This time, I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker. He is the hardest working veteran that I know. George Newell, St. Charles County Veterans Committee.
Hey, George.
Good afternoon and welcome home, brothers and sisters that are here, distinguished guests, and our friends and neighbors. I'm especially humbled to speak today. Today is one of the celebrations of the 50th anniversary of the Vietnam War. If you've been watching Channel 9, you saw some of the clips. President Trump November 1st signed a proclamation making the entire month of November Veterans and Military Month, and gave the Secretary of the VA a whole list of things to do. Every day they have one or more events. It's also the 35th anniversary of the dedication of the Vietnam Wall in D.C. I've never been able to attend one of their anniversaries because I've always been here with you. But it's a pleasure to be here in presence of so many of my veteran friends and their families. I've been involved with veterans activities about 25 years. I remember one time we had Bill McCullen, the journalist here. He said, I don't know why you asked me to speak. I'm nobody. I haven't done anything special. I served in the military, but I didn't do anything there. I'm just an everyday person. And sometimes I think about that I'm just an everyday person. We get to do small things to help people, but we've never really got to do something really large. I can tell you, though, that my service to veterans has been very rewarding. The St. Charles Veterans Committee, which I'm representing, is just that, a committee of veterans. At one time, we had participation throughout the county. Every county city then followed and have their own commission and their own programs. Today, they're celebrating the 50th anniversary of the memorial, first Vietnam Memorial in the United States in Wentzville at this same time. Like I said, our committee has been doing programs for 60 years. I've been involved about 24 years. I want to thank our leadership here from St. Louis City and St. Louis, did I say St. Louis? St. Charles City and St. Charles County, sorry. They've been a tremendous amount of support to us. The program here was set up today by county employees who gave up their day to come here and work and do this for us. Without their support, we would not be able to do what we do now. One time we used to haul chairs in Tom Stevenson's truck from the Legion and set a lot of this up. We're not able to do that today, and we're glad for their support. Also, I'd like to be the third one to thank the band. Every time we've asked, we've had the band here, and they've played their wonderful music, which I think adds a whole lot to our programs. So thank you again very much. Lastly, we would be successful with our veteran service organizations. We've had primarily support from the American Legion, St. Charles Post 312, and St. Charles VFW Post 2866. We also have a few Marines, a few Vietnam vets, and people that belong to other organizations. But we thank you for your support. Without you, they wouldn't be possible either. Veterans, thank you for your service and all the sacrifices you and your families have made so that freedom is known and able to be lived around the world. Each person that wears the veteran emblem here has a story to tell. Sit down and talk with them. Ask them about their story. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story. I started out at Fort Dix, New Jersey, did basic and AIT, went to Fort Benning. From there, I went to Fort Leonard and then to Vietnam. I ended my service in Vietnam. In Vietnam, I was attached to the 1st to the 35th Infantry Battalion with the 4th Infantry Division. We were up in the highlands, in the mountains of Vietnam, where the three borders come together. And as the first lieutenant, I was platoon leader, later Company XO, and a headquarters company commander. And as a platoon leader, I was really lucky. We would be out in the field for as long as 46 days with an undersized platoon. And a good day was when we didn't come in contact with anybody. Most of the time, they would find, not most of the time, sometimes they would find us and we would have a short-term situation. Most of the time, it didn't result in anything. We did have some days, though, where we spent all day in one place fighting with the enemy. I do know the adrenaline rush, the increased blood flow of jumping out of a Huey helicopter onto a landing zone. We hoped for soft earth. For those of you that were infantry, you know what I mean. Because sometimes we were 4, 5, 6 feet above the ground. I had good men in my platoon when we came home. Unfortunately, when good men go to war, some do not come home. I didn't have that happen to me as a platoon leader. I was very pleased. Today, I serve veterans in a different way. I've identified several areas where I can make a difference. One is to guide veterans to get their benefits from the VA, to make a claim. The other is legislative. And I've been active for a number of years in both areas. Vietnam veterans' motto is never again will one generation abandon another. So we especially support our newest veterans and those that are currently members of the armed forces. And we support them when they come home. We remember how they were treated, well, how we were treated, and they deserve better. However, we need them to come forward and join with us. We can't partner with them without them coming to us, as we can share our experiences and help them along. After the war, I married and have 3 daughters. And we used to come to St. Charles and watch the parades down First Capitol. And when I saw the Vietnam vets with the POW flag, it used to make me kind of sad for a while to think. At that time, we probably had live POWs somewhere in Southeast Asia. But I joined their group in 1992 and soon became their chapter president. This took me on another journey to the state capitol. And I've become involved with veterans legislation, have joined the VFW, did some leadership positions there. As a result of all that, I became chairman of MAVO, the Missouri Association of Veterans Organizations, and also for 4 years I served as president of the Missouri State Council of Vietnam Veterans of America. As a result of that, I traveled to DC several times a year for those 4 years. And I was exposed to many of the programs. We heard Secretary of the VA and other individuals speak to us, and kept up on the situation in our country as far as veterans were concerned. As chair of MAVO, the Missouri Association, I also worked with many veterans groups and many people in the Missouri House and Senate. In 2007, MAVO spearheaded a 1/8 cent sales tax for veterans. Unfortunately, that didn't pass. What we were hoping for was additional funding for veterans' homes, additional care centers for our most recent veterans, those that come home with traumatic brain injuries, multiple amputations, and PTSD. We still have the opportunity to do more for them. Our newest veterans have different needs than we do, and we need to meet their needs. Recently, I've also been involved, the last 5-6 years, with the St. Louis VA Medical Center to work on solving and correcting problem areas. And one of our areas that we've worked on is satisfaction and service. And a number of us from St. Charles County are on a committee to provide, Senator McCaskill has a online survey. It's accessible at mccaskill.senate.gov. You fill out a short survey on how you were treated. That information is compiled quarterly. We review that information and put it into a congressional report, usually about 36 pages. That then goes to the VA Medical Center director for comments, what they're going to do about those situations, and they have 30 days to respond back to the senator. I can say that our results have shown me, when I go to the VA, a change in the culture, and the survey also shows an increase in satisfaction over the last 5 years. Excuse me. Most recently, I've been appointed to a Veterans and Family Advisory Council at the St. Louis VA. That's a new committee. We've only met a couple times. We meet again next week. And we haven't exactly got a mission yet of what particular projects we're going to work on. But we've been getting information from all the department heads. And I can tell you that the St. Louis VA is starting a lot of new programs trying to better serve us when we go to their facilities. We also need to work at the state level. Our oldest veterans home is now 30 years old. We have 1,350 beds in 7 veterans homes. The waiting list to get into a veteran's home varies from 1,800 to over 2,000. So the need is there. And your contribution by contacting your local state senators and representatives or writing them is helpful. Steve and Sally can both tell you that, having been in those positions. Our veteran homes, when I went to DC and visited with the other state presidents, I could say our veteran homes were second to none in the United States. Some states had one veteran home, it was quite old. Illinois has some pretty old ones. Recently, about the past year, they had some deaths due to antiquated water systems at their home. I also want you to be aware of the health effects of Agent Orange exposure. Institute of Medicine reports have been coming out every 2 years on Agent Orange. They're available online. They're about 1,000 pages each. They're peer-reviewed research. And that's where our presumptive diseases come from. When veterans of Vietnam War who served in country have a much higher incidence of those presumptive diseases than the normal military population of that time. There is a constant flow of information there. You need to be informed. Last year saw a big response to something we've been working on for 12 years, and that was the Toxic Exposure Act of 2016. This gave services and research on the intergenerational effects of Agent Orange, on the children, the effect on the children of veterans who served in Vietnam. Last November, I met with Senator Blunt. We both agreed that probably that bill wasn't going anywhere. In early December, the House passed the bill. A week later, the Senate passed the bill. And on December 16th, President Obama signed that bill into law, which gives services to children exposed to any toxic substance. We have our newest generation of veterans exposed to toxic substances. If you read very much, burn pit exposures, Saddam's oil fires, depleted uranium, different solvents. Across the country, we've had people exposed to toxic substances on Army bases and other military bases. We're also been advocating for the blue water Vietnam veterans, those that served offshore Vietnam. They also were exposed, we know that. An Australian study showed all the water purification systems were poor. The milk they drank on ship was made from water onshore in Vietnam and so on. The government gave them benefits and then took it away. Just a week and a half ago, the House committee did not support H.R. 299 that would have gave them the presumptives back because there wasn't money to provide for their compensation. Again, they wanted to borrow money from one veteran's benefit to pay for another, and that didn't work very good. For the veterans in this group, I have 3 goals for you. First, join a veteran service organization. We're your support. We're your source of information. We have, at the state level, probably 21 to 24 statewide veterans groups. The larger ones have veteran service officers. We have some of the best right here in St. Charles County. So join a veteran service organization if you haven't. Enroll in VA medical care. I talked to a veteran yesterday. He had applied for some help and didn't get it, and he just gave up. I said, we need to revisit that. The more enrollees, what most people don't realize, the more people that use the VA medical system, the more funding they get per hospital or clinic or so on. A lot of people say, well, I don't want to do that because it would deprive somebody else. That's not true. And as I said earlier, new programs are being initiated as we speak. One of them is going to be a survey on a tablet that you do when you finish your appointment. File for benefits you may be entitled to. And again, this is all tied together. You need to know what they are. You need to talk to a service officer. You need to talk to some of us. You need to read and advocate for yourself also. The veterans organizations offer service officers at no cost to the veterans. So follow those three things. And in closing, let's make every day Veterans Day for Missouri's veterans. Let's support those still serving and those that are coming home, and make sure when they do come home, they're welcomed. We still have a lot of things to do. Even though they're small things, they mean a lot of difference. And God bless our veterans, our military that are currently serving, and God bless America. Have a happy Veterans Day and a memorable Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I screwed up. Seriously, it was not a protest. I skipped over the national anthem. And at this time, I would definitely want to go back and add that into the program. Captain Larry Rubling, retired United States Air Force.
All right, please. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
We do have one of our state representatives, Kurt Barr, present. Thank you for being here. If there's any others. And now for that.
Thank you. Before we start, I would just like to invite, we're going to play our Armed Forces Salute, which we seem to play at every one of these ceremonies because I think it's important and I think you all enjoy it. Would like to ask you all to stand when your service song is played, so we can be recognized through your division of the services. Thank you.
No need. by Dick Safe and Art Miner, Korean War Veterans Association, Chapter 6. Please stand. This time the benediction by Rich Mittendorf, Chaplain, American Legion Post 312.
Dear God, we thank you for this opportunity to honor all our veterans who have served their time protecting our freedoms. Continue to watch over our servicemen and women throughout the world. We pray for their safe return, and God bless the United States of America. Amen.
Amen.
This time we'll have the rifle salute, Guard of Honor, American Legion Post 312, followed by taps. From the St. Charles Municipal Band. We want to introduce the members of the St. Charles County Veterans Committee. Chairman Tom Stevenson. Secretary George Newell. St. Charles County St. Charles County Veterans Committee and St. Charles City Veterans Commission would like to give a special thanks to our speakers and those whose assistance made this program possible, especially the band. Thank you again. If there are any Vietnam veterans or Vietnam era veterans who have not received the 50th anniversary pin, please see George at the conclusion of our program. And this concludes our program. Thank you for coming.